Hi, I'm Jim Morgan. I'm the producing artistic director here at the York Theatre Company. Now, the Mufti series is something very special that we're very proud of. Behind me, this wall is a timeline of all the shows we've done in the series, beginning in 1994 up to the present, 100 shows. And many people have no idea what the word Mufti means. It's a East Indian word that was picked up by the British Army to mean out of uniform. We use it to mean in street clothes, without all the trappings one associates with these shows that were once very full productions. And a mufti is quite simply a simply staged concert version of a noteworthy show from the past that really deserves to be seen again. And I'm here today with a very good friend, a longtime supporter and believer in the Mufti series, Mr. Charles Wright, who's a writer and has written the notes for all of our Mufti shows since almost the beginning of the series.
Almost the beginning. Jim, you should mention that you're also celebrating the Hammerstein Award this week. In fact, I'm surprised to find you on the day after the Hammerstein Award so full of energy. But the next Mufti is by the recipients of the
Lynn Ahrens
year's Hammerstein Award.
Yes, Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty. Last night we had the big gala where we presented the 23rd Oscar Hammerstein Award to them. It was an amazing evening, an incredible lineup of people. But what was really interesting out of it was talking with Stephen after the show about the work they're doing on the show. It's a brand new version of the show that has never been seen.
It's my favorite year.
My favorite year, yes. And several new songs, a revised book, a revised structure. And that's one of the unique things about the Mufti series. Everyone, in fact, we tend to think of the series as being about doing old shows.
Museum pieces, right?
Yes.
But that's not fair.
That's not fair. And we don't believe in rewriting the shows, but whenever the authors are available to do whatever work they want to on it, we love that. And from the beginning of the series, we have had an incredible history of working with some major writers on shows that they wanted to go back and revisit.
Well, I particularly remember seeing Betty Comden and Adolph Green here working on a couple of shows, but you mentioned that Burton Lane was involved with Carmelina.
Yes, Burton Lane wrote it with Alan J. Lerner and Joe Stein. And Lerner had passed away by the time we did it the first time, but Burton and Joe were very much involved, and Barry Harmon, who had come in to write additional lyrics with Lerner's permission. And so it's a very different version of the show than was done on Broadway, and much of it was worked out here in the Mufti series. Then we did it a second time. By that time, Burton had passed away, but Joe and Barry Harmon did major work continuing to refine the show.
There was, of course, the Sheldon Harnick series.
Last year, and actually it was earlier this year. And the shows that weren't, even Tenderloin, which is considered a classic that was set in stone years ago, he put a song back in that had been cut on the road that he actually meant to put into the Encore's production and forgot about.
Am I right that song was considered too risque back in the 50s when the show was on the road?
Risque, and something that would turn off the male critics, or that did turn off the male critics, so they cut it on the road. The female critics and the female audience members loved it. It's called I Wonder What It's Like to Be With a Man. And it's a charming, wonderful song with a wonderful insight into that character.
2 weeks ago, you had Saturday Night by Stephen Sondheim in Mufti, and Mr. Sondheim was present.
He was. This was his first professional show ever, and it had not been seen anywhere until about 20 years ago, and this was its first New York revival. And he loved what we did. He loved the simplicity of it. He said, this is perfect. But he made a few little changes here and there for clarity's sake. It wasn't about rewriting and trying to make it suddenly perfect. He knew it was an early work of his, and it shows the hallmarks of that.
It's fascinating to research and, at the best of times, actually hear from the participants about the experiences, the creative experiences, where things went wrong. Usually it's on the road, and why these shows did not become a prominent part of the American musical theater.
There's some very touching stories. There's some horrifying stories about one author, one composer, lyricist who was banned from the theater, and his show only ran one night.
Yes, that was a very sad story indeed.
But there are other equally fraught stories that are fascinating when you hear them, and the joy of watching these creators see their show up on its feet again, or the creators are no longer with us, but you watch audiences reveling in these shows that they didn't know or have always dreamed of seeing because they knew the recording, or maybe they saw it originally and have always hoped to see it again.
In some cases, the backstory would make a good musical play.
Absolutely, absolutely. Charles, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon to talk a little bit about the Mufti series.
It's been great fun.